gave me a lot of great advice. He was a mentor. And one of the important things that he had to say was, be nice and kind to everyone you meet on your way up, because you're going to meet them all on your way down, and you're going to need a friend. And he was so, so true.
Now, we've all heard stories about Lon Chaney, and you were with him towards the end of his career. And did he still have his acting chops when he was working with you?
His acting chops were sharper on Spider Baby, which is his last starring role, than they were when he did Mice and Men.
Really?
Yeah. I think he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for Mice and Men, as a matter of fact. He was very sharp. He had a reputation for being an alcoholic, and so he had it put in the contract that he could not have a drink while he was working. That's how much he wanted to do that film. So he was a much maligned, much misunderstood person, but a hell of an actor. Yeah.
How many of you have seen Spider Baby?
There you go.
Oh, not enough.
Not enough. Not enough.
Please do watch it. It's an incredible film.
It's not a slasher film, okay? It's just odd and creepy. It's probably the only horror film ever shot without a drop of blood.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And you hung out in the dumbwaiter, do I remember correctly?
Yeah, well, the storyline is this family, the Mary family, has this syndrome where the older they get, the more they start to regress, and until they become middle age, they actually turn into animals. And we've got Uncle Ned and Aunt Clara down in the basement who've got hair and they're growing canines, and people who stupidly kind of wander into our little compound wind up in the basement as food. Yeah. We're the first film of crazy people living out in the country killing and eating people. 11 years before Rocky Horror, 13 years before Texas Chainsaw or The Hills Have Eyes. It was like a total breakthrough film.
And it was well shot. I mean, this is not, I mean, the photography, the cinematography is just incredible. The lighting is wonderful.
The cinematographer was a guy named Al Taylor, and if he had not had such a dislike for unions, okay, and had been a union member, probably would have received Academy Award after Academy Award. He was so good that there's a scene, for those of you who have seen the film, where Mantan Moreland comes to deliver mail to the house and there's nobody around, and he sticks his head through the window and gets his ear chopped off. Sorry. The thing that was tricky about that scene was that there was no power at the house. So there was no way to light him from the inside. And Al Taylor, the cinematographer, took 6 reflectors and bounced the light from outside into the house, down hallways, through another room, and into that space.
Wow.
And you never got a hot, shiny spot. It was all very, very well taken care of. So the guy knew what he was doing.
Now, Jack Hill was the director of that, right?
Jack Hill was the director, yeah.
And you knew him?
I did his student film.
Really?
Yeah. It was called The Host, and it's on a companion disc with Switchblade Sisters, Miramax release. When he was getting ready to cast Spider Baby, my character was to the point where I was old enough where I couldn't really even speak anymore, and I was just kind of a drooling idiot. And so he said, I want you to come by the office and meet the producers, and we'll just kind of do some stuff, and we'll see what happens. Well, I had no point of reference, because I just wasn't associated with people that were in that shape. So I was sitting there playing with my toes and sucking my thumb and doing all kinds of. And when he said, "Okay, that's cool," and I looked at the producers and they had this look on their face like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, what did we just do?" But it all worked out. And the thing is, I mean, we made that in 1964, and it's like every 5 years we pick up a whole new generation of fans of that film. So, and you can order it at sidhaig.com. Plug there.
No, actually, I hosted horror movies in Washington for 15 years, and we hosted hundreds of movies. That was one I never heard of until about the late 80s. And then someone told me about it, and I went, and I thought, my gosh, what a great little film. I mean, you're right, creepy is the right word for it.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
The female leads, whose names I'm
Jill Banner and
Washburn.
Washburn.
Yeah. Really, really creepy.
Beverly Washburn. Anybody ever see Old Yeller? Yeah. Okay, she was the little girl in Old Yeller. Yeah.
All right, well, I've started it off giving you a background way back in '64 and where our star came from. How about any questions? I assume that many of you are more familiar with some of the contemporary.
Yeah. Or if you dress like that all the time, you're in trouble.
We have a role for you in the next film.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was wonderful to meet you yesterday, and I heard from someone that you have an interesting story about a party with James Dean.
An interesting story about a party with James Dean? No.
All right, that was a quick answer.
However, now we get back to the Spider Baby connection. James Dean was killed in a car accident in a black Porsche Spider along the California coast. Jill Banner, who played one of my sisters, was killed in a black Porsche Spider at almost the exact same spot as James Dean. That's weird.
What was the name of that road?
I forget. I don't know.
Okay, whatever it is, find out. Don't drive your black Porsche.
Yeah,
along
just
that
for
road.
now.
Yeah. White Porsche, maybe. Yeah, Spider. Well, hey, there you go. Questions?
It's more about contemporary. Do you feel that like modern horror has become too reliant on the jump scare?
Well, yeah, because there's very few unique storylines in horror anymore. Okay, they either just take stuff that's already been done and kind of rework it and do it cheaper because they don't have any money. I mean, there's still some really good horror stuff being made, okay, but the majority of it is kind of substandard as far as I'm concerned. I grew up with the classics, you know, Lugosi and Karloff and Cheney and all those guys, and I don't see any of those kind of people around right now, you know, kind of sad. But that's partly due to the union, because in order to spur film production, they started different types of plans, payment plans. It used to be union scale. And if you were a working actor like I have been for the past 54 years, you could get by on working for scale because you were working almost every week, okay? Then they came up with this low budget scale, okay, which gave people with not a whole lot of money an opportunity to make films. Well, that's a lot lower. So you got to do 2 films a week to make a living. Then they came up with the ultra low budget scale, okay? And finally they came up with a ultra low budget deferred scale, which means your chances of seeing money is like if you look in somebody else's pocket, okay? Because you're not getting anything. So that's, you know, that's part of the problem. And a lot of guys watch a lot of films and they say, well, I could do that. And they take dad's credit card and go out and buy some stuff and make bad movies because they don't know how to do it.
Now, have you seen any of these bad movies that actually turned out to have some glimpse of brilliance in them?
No.
I'm not a filmmaker, so I'm not asking for myself.
No. The only brilliance comes if, like, there's a headlight on a car that's coming towards you. It's like,
Well, I can actually go into that a little bit because every week I get short films. Upcoming film. Well, I don't say up-and-coming filmmakers, I'm being generous. People who went out and got their first camera.
Yeah.
Or they said, oh, wow,
I mean, you
I
can
can
buy
shoot video on my phone.
Yeah, you can buy a big red for $3,500.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they get all their friends together and say, well, let's make a movie. Let's make a horror movie. Wow, we got all these people. We can make a zombie movie. I can't tell you how many bad zombie movies I've seen.
And you know, there's actually a guy that has snowed producers into believing that he's a zombie walk cord, and he teaches people how to walk like zombies. And I actually did one of those films. You know, sometimes you got to take crap because you have bills to pay. All right, we're like everybody else. Okay, we got to pay our bills. And I did this film called House of the Dead 2, piece of crapola. And this guy was trying to teach me how to walk like a zombie. I said, you know what? Go over there and sit down, okay? I got this. Jesus.
I have a question.
Go.
What was your first thoughts when you got the script for House of the Thousand Corpses?
Okay, this is how this all came down. I got in 1992, I decided, you know what? If these guys in Hollywood can't figure out that I can do more than just point a gun in somebody's face, I'm just going to sit back and relax and wait until somebody with some brains has got something going. So I get a call from my agent, and he goes, okay, here's the deal. I said, Jesus, what now? He goes, you go to this building on Wilshire Boulevard. Oh, I'm supposed to be impressed. And sign a letter of non-disclosure and take the script home and read it, and if you like it, the part is yours. I went, whoa, hey, somebody with some synapses firing just gave me an offer here. So I took it home and I read it, and I thought I could have so much fun with it. I called the next day and I said, let's do this. And that was it. I had never met Rob. As a matter of fact, the first time I met him was in the wardrobe of the department when we were getting fitted for our wardrobe. Then, at his wedding, I was standing there talking to his brother, and he said, this is so weird. And I said, what's so weird? The wedding? And he goes, no, standing here talking to you. I said, what are you talking about? He said, when Rob and I were kids, we used to get up every Saturday morning and watch Jason of Star Command, and you used to scare the crap out of us. And I started popping up in all kinds of films that Rob liked to watch, and he said, if I ever get to direct a film, I want that guy in it. And that's how I got involved.
Cool.
Yeah.
How is it, you know, how is it to work with a director who is a musician? I mean, is there any difference, different sensibility?
No, yeah, people were worried about the fact that he was, you know, going to screw up because, I mean, he's a musician. If you're an artist, you're an artist, okay? And if you are diligent and creative and successful in one form of art, when you take on another form of art, you're not going to be a different person. You're both going to be just as conscientious and observant and creative as you were as, you know, a painter or a musician or anything else. That's what I thought.
And you were right? Questions?
Yeah, back to Spider Baby. That was your first film with Jack Hill, but you did several others with him, right?
Yeah, that was my fourth film, Spider Baby.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd done, well, I'd done Jack's first film, and then I did a Western, and a couple of other things. Another film for Jack, as a matter of fact, Bloodbath, said it looked like it was 3 films put together. Well, it was. Roger Corman, who is the champion of cheap, okay, but so many people like myself graduated from Corman College, okay, like Francis Ford Coppola and Scorsese and the list goes on and on. Roger had this thing that he used to do every year. He'd make the tour of all of the European film labs and look at stuff that was processed but not paid for, okay? And he'd say, well, I'll pay the bill on this, just give me the film, okay? And that's what he did. So there was exterior footage, beautiful stuff, this countryside, Yugoslavian countryside, castles and this, that, and the other thing. And he brought that back and he showed it to Jack Hill, and he said, okay, write a story around, okay. So Jack wrote the story around that, and we shot that, and then Roger wanted some additional stuff, so he got a hold of Stephanie Rothman, who was anxious to direct the film, and so she put her spin on what Jack's spin was on whatever kind of movie this was originally supposed to be. So it was 3 movies put together. But it still made money because Roger Corman has never lost a dime on a film. That's because he puts his own money in, so he's got one boss, him. If it works, it's on him, and if it doesn't work, he'll blame somebody else.
You think the industry would be in a better position if more people did that rather than doing it by committee?
Well, yeah, to give you an example, Universal Studios was called the House of Horror.
Right.
Okay? Rob Zombie took House of a Thousand Corpses to them, and they said, oh yes, this will be wonderful, okay? So they had their own producer on the set every day. They watched the dailies, which the film that you shot the previous day, and they would give him notes daily, like that thick, and of course throw it over his shoulder and keep moving. Film got completed. There were screenings all over the country, and the survey cards were coming back great. They were either 1s or 10s, which is exactly what you want. You know, you don't like the film, fine. But if you like it and give it a 10, that's great. Nobody wants to have survey cards that are 5s, because it's like, okay. So the head of the studio said, well, maybe I should go to one of these screenings. And Rob, in his naivete, said, yes, we're having one, you know, tomorrow night at wherever. And so she shows up, and at the end of the film, they found her in the lobby crying and shaking uncontrollably. Somebody had to drive her fat ass home. And the next day she canceled the film. Okay. So it sat on the shelf for 3 years until the people at Lionsgate said, how come we've never seen this film? And I was like, what? You've never seen the film? No. They showed it to them. They went to Universal. Universal discounted it by $2 million. And Lionsgate released it, and it made its money back the first day. So
that would explain. I got 2 different trailers for that film a couple of years apart, and they look totally different. That would explain it. Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't make heads or tails of it. They look like 2 different movies.
Big studios and their executives kind of work like government. They spend money, but they don't know what the hell they're doing, okay? Because it's not their money. That's it.
And, okay, is it unfair to say that they really don't know the industry, the movies themselves?
No, they don't. They don't know what's right, what's wrong, what's going on. They don't have a pulse on what it is that you want to see, what you want to watch. And that's why I always encourage, whenever I do a panel, I encourage people to go to a studio, website, whatever, and tell them what it is that you want to see, as long as it's me. No. But, you know, that's, you have to spoon feed this stuff to them, okay? Because they don't know.
Would it be fair to say that Lionsgate now is the House of Horror?
No, because oddly enough, I mean, they did a lot of horror films that were successful, and then they decided, well, we're going to change and get into family films and high action stuff, and they're losing their ass, okay? So they finally, the light came on, and they're finally moving back towards horror.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I see a lot of their, you know, well, most of the stuff, you know, 10 years old that I see it.
Yeah, the stuff that they did 10 years ago was a lot of horror.
On
Nice
that
save.
note, what can we see you in the future? Since you said, let's see more Sid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't know how many people have seen Bone Tomahawk. Anybody seen that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's out right now. And I have got a film that's in post right now called High on the Hog, which I'm really kind of anxious to get it out there, because not only I'm playing the lead in the film, but it's a story about a guy who's a farmer, and this farm has been in the family for 5 generations. He's having a little tough time making ends meet, so he decides to plant a little weed in with the corn, which, nothing wrong with that, come on, makes the corn better. And everything goes along fine until the DEA shows up, and then everything kind of turns to shit, you know. But I think it's going to be a good film. And the thing that's interesting about it is that the crew was basically film students and theater arts majors. And they were all enthusiastic, energetic. They really wanted to do a good job, you know, because this was all their first film, and they wanted to really be an integral part of the success of this film. The only problem is they didn't know what their job was. So I went to the executive producer and I said, you know, you got to get a producer in here with some organizational skills that can teach these kids what it is they need to know, because they really want to do a good job for you. And he said, will you do it? I went, well, you have my agent's number. He gave her a call, and the next day I was the producer. So I had a 3.5-hour production meeting with all the production heads, and got them headed in the right direction, explained to them exactly what their job was, how to do it, how to prep for it, and if they needed something, and who to go to get it done. And the next day it was like we hired a whole new crew. So it was just, they just needed that information, you know, because they had the desire. Which gets back to the thing of genius that we were talking about on the way over here. 5 miles away from where the I still don't understand that. Albert Einstein, genius, okay, and he was asked what his definition of genius was. And it was imagination, visualization, intuition, and desire. That's it. And these kids had the desire, and they envisioned themselves as being successful, and they just needed to get a little push along the way, okay? And they all came out at the other end like they had been doing it for years.
Now, this is High on the Hog?
Yep.
And it's going to get, is it a theatrical or a DVD release?
Well, we're hoping theatrical.
Okay.
Put a lot into it. Yeah.
So, find it. Go see it. Buy the tickets.
I think there's a trailer online right now. I'm not sure. They might have taken it down because we're kind of changing some things in the film, because it was kind of sitting in between genres. So they decided to make it more of a grindhouse kind of film, and shot some additional footage, and are editing it together in a different way, and it'll turn out to be, you know, more grindhouse.
Funny, when you mentioned growing the weed with the corn, I thought it was going to go in a different direction. Guy selling high potency pork.
Okay, well, that's high on the hog too. Okay?
And it's yours. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll write that down. And a great cast, and it's really kind of a human interest, family-oriented kind of thing until stuff starts going bad. But along the way, this farmer runs into these women who've been, in one way or another, horribly abused, and he takes them in as family. And they operate that way, like family. And so when things go bad, it's like something happening to an entire family as opposed to one guy.
This is great hearing your enthusiasm for this film. I mean, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Next question. Yeah.
Has there been, over the years, a change in film and the movie industry in terms of professionalism and a movement toward a sort of independent, seat-of-the-pants kind of filmmaking style? And do you prefer either one? Which one do you prefer?
There have been a lot of changes in the way movies are done, okay? When I first got into the business in 1961, CGI were 3 letters in the alphabet, okay? And now they're using it to abuse in a lot of cases. There's a lot of good CGI, but it's like overdone, like crazy. They even had, in one of the Batman films, where the bad guy was the Penguin, which Batman film was that? Whatever, Batman 22. They actually came up with a way for the penguins to have babies, because they analyzed, this is so stupid, they analyzed penguins, and just for your knowledge to take away with you and then destroy, penguins have 1,400 different movements that they make, okay? So they would take a CGI created penguin that had X number of movements and made it together with another penguin that had X number of movements and create this baby penguin that would do all these odd things. So when all the penguins are marching down the street, okay, if you look closely, they're all doing something different, okay? That took a lot of creativity for absolutely no result. Yeah. And the way the casting is done now is totally nuts. It's absolutely crazy. That's why you'll see TV series basically on cable that only last a season or a half a season. When I first got into the business and I went on an audition, the casting director was there, the director was there, the producer was there, the casting director for the studio, for the network was there. You had all of these people that you had to read for and impress, okay? Nowadays, you go on to the net and get the lines for the character that you're supposed to be reading for off the internet and videotape yourself at home doing those lines and then sending it via internet to the studio, and then it's just totally stupid. And now they said, wait a second, it's all about popularity. So the bigger your media numbers are, the better chance you have of starring in a film. So you've got some guy who's got nothing but time on his hands and lives in his mother's basement that is sitting there on all of the anti-social networks, okay, all day long, building up his media numbers, okay, but has absolutely no talent, but is starring in a television series. Is this stupid or what? Yeah, it's crazy. That's the way it is. So tomorrow I'll be on the internet. You gotta tough it up, okay? If that's the way it's going, fine, I'll play.
So that's SidHaig.com, right?
Yeah, SidHaig.com.
Just
Well,
make sure
that is my, that's my website. Come by, visit.
Nope. I want to make sure you have that.
Yep, buy some stuff. I have over 100 items in my store. Yeah, there's my plug for the day.
Okay, how about another question? How about right here?
Over your career, who was the actor you had the most fun working with?
I have got to say Dabney Coleman because, and this was a great compliment to me, probably one of the biggest compliment that was ever made, but it wasn't made directly, you know, somebody did just come up and say something. I auditioned for an episode of Mary Hartman. Anybody ever see that show? Okay. And I won the audition and did the episode, and a couple of weeks later they called and they said, would you like to do a couple more? Because, you know, you looked like you were having fun. And I said, yeah, sure. It was great fun. And 126 episodes later, they killed me. And every scene that I had with Dabney Coleman was just an absolute pleasure to do. And that was a rough series because there was never a take. In 126 episodes, there was never a take two. If you got in trouble, you just worked it out, okay, just like you were on stage. And when he and I started going after it because somebody dropped a line, then it was like, whew, stand back, these guys are crazy. Yeah, but yeah, he was a lot of fun to work with.
I saw a terrific documentary called Machete Maples Unleashed, where you discuss some of your experiences in the Philippines doing films in the 70s. And I was just wondering if you had any others that didn't, you know, make it into that. Or...
Shooting in the Philippines is like, I don't know, artistic warfare. Because everything is a challenge. You're working in the jungle, which is growing up around you daily. I mean, we literally chopped our way into, with machetes, chopped our way into an area that we were going to shoot in on a Friday. And when we came back on Monday, we had to chop it all down again, okay? I mean, the stuff grows in the Philippines, okay? Everything but the people, for some reason. It's like, you got crickets this big, people this big. Still can't get that. But, you know, it was just, everything was a challenge. And we'd get some of the girls over there from Beverly Hills or whatever, and well, I have to go potty. And I said, well, go kill a bush. But take somebody with you to watch for snakes and spiders, because that was the deal. I mean, they had spiders over there that were the size of dinner plates, okay? Yeah. And if you got bitten, it wouldn't kill you, but you wish that it had, because there's no anti-venom for it, so they basically put you in restraints in a hospital and you just go into spasms for 24 hours. Yeah. So you gotta have to watch out for that shit, and pythons and vipers and everything else. It's totally nuts. I mean, I'd worked there for 4 years, and finally somebody came up with an invention for a porta potty. Okay, good. But it was definitely a challenge. And some of the stuff was, you know how you feel bad for somebody, but at the same time it's funny, okay? Patrick Wayne, John Wayne's son, and I were sitting, you know, watching what was going on down by the beach. And one of the crew guys had to run back to get a piece of equipment that they needed. So he ran back, he got it, he started running back towards the shoreline, and by magic, hand of God, whatever, a coconut fell out of the tree and hit him right on the top of the head, okay? And he kept running, but with each step he got closer and closer to the ground until it just nosed in. I had to laugh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
glad to have worked with, or you think did an exceptional job?
I enjoyed working with Quentin Tarantino. Yeah. There's a lot of directors that Guy Hamilton, who directed most of the Bond films, okay, was great to work with. Geez, I don't know, there's a whole ton of them. And getting back to Mary Hartman, working with that director. Now I'm stuck for his name. Jim Drake. I haven't lost it yet. When they killed me off, the producers came down and they said, Sid, it's been great, you know, blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. I said, it's not over. Because I was working with, there was 2 of us that were working to take over the country because we were high-ranking members of the GGG, the Glorious Guardians of Good. Figure that out. Okay, so, this guys, it's been great, you know, and thanks a lot for all of your work. I said, it's not over. I said, what do you mean it's not over? We just killed you. I said, I know, but it's not over. And they said, well, what else is there to do? I said, well, we have to come back as our wives to claim the bodies, okay? And they looked at one another and they looked at me and they said, get 2 dresses from Western Costume tomorrow morning, okay? So we actually came back as our wives to claim the bodies. And they said, okay, that's it. And I said, no, it's not. And I said, what? What now? I said, I want to direct this show. And so they went to Jim and they said, would you mind if Sid apprenticed under you to direct this show? And he said, absolutely not. I wouldn't mind at all. So as the show was winding down, I was directing all of the scenes with 2 and 3 people, and then he was directing the bigger scenes, okay? And the reason the whole thing was closing down was because they were having trouble working with their star. She was just kind of making problems, okay? And so they said, you know, we're going to have to shut this show down. I said, don't close the show. They said, well, excuse me, it's called Mary Hartman, okay? And I said, yeah, but here's the deal. She goes to get her daughter from dance class, gets in a horrible accident, okay, winds up in the hospital. The plastic surgeon is a drunk, and he gets the pictures mixed up. They take the bandages off. It's a new actress, okay? And they went, yeah, you are certifiable, okay? Well, they canceled the show. They started Fernwood Tonight, and then another show called Fernwood Forever. And Fernwood Tonight, the guy that played Mary's father was starting to cause problems, and they said, what was that storyline that Sid came up with? So he went to the store for a loaf of bread and got in a bad accident. The plastic surgeon was a drunk, switched the pictures, and when they took off the bandages, he was tap hunter. Okay.
Good plastic surgeon with, under the influence of
yeah. Because that's my middle name.
I remember those shows, Mary. The station I worked for was one of the stations that was in that network that took Mary Hartman, Forever Fernwood, Forever Tonight.
I was at a like an art show, outdoor art show, one time, and this woman was, Sid Haig, oh my God, Tex, because that was the name of my character, Tex. And I go, okay, I don't want all these people going up. And she came running up, and turns out her and her husband had a charter fishing business in Alaska. And she said, you know, anytime you want to come up, it's all on us, don't worry about a thing, you don't have to lift a finger. And she told me that in that town that they live in is only like 600 people. And that show used to air at noon. And she said at 12 o'clock, everything in town stops and everybody watches Mary Hartman. And then at 12:30, everything starts back up again. Yeah.
Well, I think on that note, I've just been given the time signal that says we are out. I invite you to come see Sid at his table. Obviously, real prominent in the corner there.
They put me in the corner, I'm in a timeout. What can I say?
And thank you all for coming out, and thank you for your questions. Look for High on a Hog.
Eye on the hog.
Eye on the Hog. And if you haven't seen Spider Baby, go to his website and buy a copy. You'll want to add it to your library. It's such a good film. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause, please.
Okay, now we all get on the bus and go back to the, I still don't get it.